15 years ago, on this very day, the gods bestowed upon us a gem. Super Mario Strikers on the Nintendo GameCube. You may have thought I was setting up for a joke just now, but really I wasn't. This is a fun game and I would recommend it any day over FIFA 50. Okay, today Animal Crossing Wild World turns 15 years old. This was my first Animal Crossing and it's been quite a crazy ride since, so for its 15th anniversary I wanted to revisit it, talk a little bit about its mechanics, how it's held up against other games in the series, and why it's special to me. It's also just a good excuse to boot up the game. But you can't talk about Wild World without talking about Cityfolk. Cityfolk had its 12th birthday just a couple of weeks ago, so we'll touch up on that a bit as well. Animal Crossing Wild World was released on December 5th, 2005. Because both this game and Cityfolk launched in the holiday window, I have a difficult time disassociating them with the Christmas season. Really, they have nothing to do with it, but I spent lots of snowy winter nights cooped up inside just throwing hours at these games. I've told this story before, but when I was 9 years old, I had been out of school with a head injury and was starting to miss my friends and seeing kids my age. So my mom, being the absolute baller-ass woman that she is, took me to the store and bought me Animal Crossing Wild World so that I could have my first taste of social escapism.
How it feels to play Animal Crossing Wild World.
The game starts you off the same way as the others. You, the broke-ass human, moves to a town with some animal villagers. They give you a house, make you work a quick tutorial phase, and you're good to go. You can customize the town or your house, make friends with animals, catch bugs or fish. You know the deal at this point. The graphics might seem a little hard to digest now, of course, but back in the day it was pretty impressive that Nintendo had gotten a whole Animal Crossing game running on a handheld. I could take my town with me wherever I went, and I could play the game with others. Holy Seuss de Woos, Nintendo. It's actually kind of funny, the whole portability thing eventually backfired on me because I took my copy of Wild World onto the school bus, and that is where I lost it forever. So I get so jealous and upset when I see those videos online, revisiting my old Wild World town after 10 years. Fuck you, I wish I could do that, but not everybody has that opportunity, you stupid son. So anyway, the upgrades from the GameCube version didn't stop there. You could do things like change your hair, have facial accessories, use custom designs to decorate your town, crossbreed flowers, and you could also look... I'm gonna sound so stupid for this. I played Animal Crossing GameCube and I could not get over the fact that you could never see the sky in this game. It takes up like half the box art, what the fuck? Thankfully, Wild World dedicates an entire screen to the sky where you can look at constellations that you've made with the new character Celeste. Or shoot down presents using the new tool, the slingshot, which you can buy at the new shop, Nookway. I'm overboard here. In summary, Wild World had plenty of new additions, but it also took some things away. NES games were cut, which is unfortunate, but not shocking. Some special characters disappeared, although they would come back in later games. Holidays also disappeared for the most part, but Wild World still had some fun made-up holidays like the Flower Festival or La Dee Day. Also Yay Day, where you go around complimenting other villagers, although I really just put in insults and it still counted. None of these ever came back, by the way, and I think that's what adds to a lot of Wild World's exclusive charm.
Well, hang on, you've just...
No, I like it. This is brilliant, but I like this.
At this point, you look at it as less of a sequel or prequel to the rest of the series, but its own thing alongside Cityfolk. While I think this mostly has to do with the game's music and art style, it's probably the game's overall personality that's the most responsible. Wild World doesn't really stray in its environmental character, which is funny because it's called Wild World, but hear me out. In New Horizons, you can straight up terraform the town's layout and add custom designs among whatever piece of furniture you please. And though New Leaf didn't have terraforming, you could still have custom designs in public work projects outside. These features make it so that every single island or town you visit can deliver a different aesthetic or visual experience, but with Wild World, that wasn't really the case. There was no landscaping, there was no putting furniture outside, and while there was custom designs, you could have only 8 per character at a time. This means at most you could have 32 slots, which is kind of close to New Horizons 40. But there was no QR codes or online network for sharing custom designs. If you wanted one, you had to input it yourself. That, or you could swap with a friend or talk to Wendell. I'm getting off track here. My point is, customizing your town was difficult and unrealistic. Most people's towns look just like this, the default village you start with, meaning that most people experience this game without a lot of the variety and self-insertion that the later games allowed. They experienced a very on-rails, vanilla Animal Crossing, something I would normally discourage if this game's personality was not so unique and wonderful. Case in point, the characters. You won't find them lifting weights or reading a book or grilling or doing whatever. They literally just walk around the entire day, and yet they feel way more engaging than in the later entries. I don't know if it's because they ask you to hang out, or because they challenge you to fishing competitions, or if it's just the very outlandish and sometimes stupid dialogue that makes me feel like I'm interacting with some of my friends in real life. I know it's been said 1,000 times before, but a lot of it has to do with just how negative some of these villagers could be. They were greedy, impulsive, bitter, and not afraid to offend you in the slightest. But in the more recent titles, it just seems like everyone tries way too hard to be your friend. Not only did Nintendo eventually dial back on mean villagers, some of the special NPCs were cut altogether. Phyllis, who worked the night shift at the post office and always insulted you under her breath, gone. Gracie, the pretentious, self-centered fashionista who openly judged you for your appearance, gone. Serena, the temperamental fountain goddess in Cityfolk who had a labyrinth of conversational choices to get the golden axe, gone. But she deserved it. I lost like 50 axes. You had it coming, Serena. But, of course, the icon himself, who made sure you would never forget to save your game, Mr. Rossetti, gone. Kind of. And that's downright shitty because it removes such a hidden layer of progression. Like I said, neither you or your town evolves. Here's how it looks when you start the game, and here's how it looks after hundreds of hours. Where New Horizons puts you on a totally deserted island and your progress can be monitored with how much you alter that island, that doesn't happen in Wild World. Instead, you feel a sense of advancement in terms of social life. Animals you are lightly acquainted with become your best friends and then show up at your house at 2 a.m. Hey bro, you're pretty-eyed. I'm sorry I was such a dickbag when you first loaded in. To complement this sense of growth, Wild World was also the rollout of the villager photographs, where when you hit a certain level of an off-screen friendship meter, the villager would come up to you, say some heartfelt words, and give you their photo. This feature is also in other games, but with Wild World, it felt far more genuine than just ordering a bunch of 10,000 bell items and gifting them over and over again until you got their photo. They made you jump through hoops by doing them favors, talking with them every day, writing them letters, so that when you actually got their picture, you felt deserving of it. It's probably for this reason that I've attached way more with my Wild World veterans like Tangy and Opal than the characters I met in later games, but I was also very young and I had a brain injury, so I mean, that's always a possibility. Alright, so that's basically my thoughts on Wild World. This game is 15 years old and in a way still ahead of some of the other entries in this series, but you'll find that's kind of a common thing. I don't know why, but when a new Animal Crossing game comes out, people always put down and forget about the old ones because they believe them to now be inferior. But I don't think it's like that. Each one of these games offers a totally different type of the same game with different music, different identities, different themes. If I can send you home with one moral from this video, it's that you shouldn't ever write off an Animal Crossing game because it's old. They're all different, they're all worth playing. Now let's talk about Cityfolk. Animal Crossing Cityfolk released on November 16th, 2008. It has since been a source of fondness, nostalgia, euphoria, and confusion, because while my own memories of this game are favorable, it's apparent that not a lot of people shared similar feelings. Cityfolk is generally regarded as the weakest in the series, with the sales backing this claim up. I still find it insane that on Nintendo's most popular selling home console, the system's Animal Crossing installment fetched only 3 million copies. And those aren't bad numbers at all, but compared to the game before it, disappointing beyond consideration. So then why? Why was this game seemingly avoided by everyone? Oh wait, now I remember.
Well, tonight, police have a warning for parents about a popular gaming system and a way it's being used to put your children at risk.
Yeah, and an ABC 17 crime alert tonight. The Mid-Missouri Internet Crimes Task Force says adults are now using systems like Nintendo Wii, Xbox, PlayStation, and Webkins to talk to children inappropriately. Let's go to ABC 17's Jacqueline Lapine live with more on how this is happening and what police are doing about it. Jacqueline?
That's right. This is the game, and you actually create your own character, house, and even town. And when connected to the internet, you can talk to people across the country. And kids have no say as to what some of these characters say to them. For example, this character could be the man in California police are warning about tonight that asked for images from Missouri children.
To me at all. I cannot come up with any legitimate reason that an adult would be playing that particular game.
Anderson says adults playing Animal Crossing
similar games are likely doing it for the wrong reasons. You probably
I think most of the bad reception surrounding Cityfolk stems from the fact that it's so similar to Wild World. Fans saw it as a disappointment in not living up to what a sequel could be capable of. It didn't take as big of a step as other games did, like from GameCube to Wild World, from Cityfolk to New Leaf, or from New Leaf to New Horizons. Pretty funny, right? As someone who regularly talks trash about re-releases and enhanced ports, I totally get it. But I still think that the idea of Wild World 2.0 is momentous. I mean, it's this already terrific game on the big screen with better graphics and better music and tons more to do, right? Why shouldn't we be excited? Well, because Nintendo made some missteps. First off, for whatever reason, they removed villager photos, who, by the way, were starting to get really repetitive in this entry. Second, the toppings they added to this version weren't too thrilling. The addition most people were excited about before release was the city. Early trailers made the city out to be this giant metropolis to explore, but all it did was give the unique visitors from Wild World their own stores. There was a few new things like Kicks or the auction house, but nothing matching the energy of a full-blown city. It was also pretty small, and the lampposts still bother me to this day. That said, this music right here is gorgeous, and it will be the last thing I hear before transitioning to the afterlife. Nintendo also decided that they really wanted the people who bought this game to hate themselves for playing it by adding a super rad new feature called grass deterioration. Did I say that word right? It didn't say deterioration? This is when you walk over an area several times, the grass beneath it fades and turns to dirt. The goal of this was to help players create natural paths where they walked. Ironically, I think the path everyone is familiar with in New Horizons is what they were shooting for, but oh my god did they miss. Not so bad in the summertime, but a design nightmare in the wintertime, actually capable of breaking the game because you can't roll up things like snowballs. Now sure, they did a lot of things right. They added back holidays and gave you the ability to get a me mask. But it's very clear how much it took from Wild World, and I don't think the game tries to shy away from this at all. There's even an option to move into the game using your Wild World save data, which is pretty novel for the series even today. I personally still love Cityfolk. I actually do enjoy it more than Wild World, although I will recognize Wild World for being the innovative one. Kind of have a Mario Galaxy situation on our hands. Do we like the first one more for creating the formula, or do we like the second one more for perfecting it? Actually, this analogy is canceled. Now there's one final feature of this game I have yet to bring up, and that's because it's technically no longer a feature, but at one point in time, Animal Crossing Cityfolk had multiplayer, and while the multiplayer has essentially stayed the same through all the games, it's the culture that surrounds it that was different. New Horizons and even New Leaf rose in an era where social media was prominent and behaves in a very similar way. I mean, hell, we even have Nookazon these days. But back in 2008, social media wasn't quite the force it is now. That's not to say it didn't exist. I mean, I had a MySpace, and I also had a YouTube, and that's how I got my Animal Crossing friends. Yes, people would upload videos with their friend codes and would exchange with people in the comments section. This practice has died since, I'm sure, but you can still see the relics if you go looking within the YouTube search bar. It's crazy to me that this is how I was introduced to my Cityfolk friends, but what's even crazier is that those same friends are watching this video right now. Shout out to you guys for sticking around for 12 years and 3 entries, I love you all. But unfortunately, on May 20th of 2014, Nintendo shut down their online servers for the Wii and DS. This is still such an odd decision to me. Like, I get that they were trying to push people to the Wii U, but it had only been out a year and a half at that point, and they were still printing Wii games. Mario Kart 8 and Smash weren't even out yet. Like, what were they trying to get people to play online on the Wii U? Every other Animal Crossing game with multiplayer has a local wireless option, so you will always have a way to play together. But not Cityfolk. When Nintendo stopped supporting the online, the ability to visit other people's towns died then and there, unless, of course, you have a modded Wii, but that's... I don't... Should I endorse that? I don't know. Those are my feelings on Animal Crossing Cityfolk. If you were to ask me if I like it better than Wild World, I would say yes. If you were to ask me if I still own my Wii Speak and my guidebook, I would say yes. If you were to ask me if I could only hear the music from Cityfolk or New Leaf, which one would I choose, I would start crying a lot, because that is a decision that no one should ever have to make. These are fantastic titles that are both pretty common in circulation, so I very much encourage you to give them a try. Happy anniversary to both of these games. Thank you so much for giving me a fantastic childhood and for being the place I could always go to when real life got ugly, or more so in my case, snowy.